Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. This is Reuters. U.S. Supreme Court justices in Trump case lean towards some level of presidential immunity. That is a huge victory I told you would take place. It'll take place officially with the justices giving Trump presidential authority and immunity over the special counsel, the absurd indictments against him at some point in June. That will essentially end the special counsel case against Trump because the Supreme Court is going to, and hit subscribe to this channel right now. You'll hear the Supreme Court Justice John Roberts in a second. You'll hear former and future President Donald Trump and others in a couple of seconds. But the Supreme Court is going to bring this indictment back to lower courts. They're going to have to completely rewrite the indictments, which of course will take long past November. And when Trump wins, and he will, he'll dissolve the special counsel, which will be fantastic. It's completely unconstitutional. Paul Bartlett, thank you so very much. Paul, thank you so very much to my super chat. Thank you so much. This is a fantastic interview with future President Trump talking about the economy and the Supreme Court and other issues in Pennsylvania, where he's up. He's up in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. He's even competitive in Minnesota. This is unbelievable. Hit subscribe right now, everybody. Paul, I can never thank you again. I can't thank you enough. I can never thank you enough. You're so wonderful. Thank you so much for your support of this channel. Hit subscribe right now.
The economy is always a major issue. Unemployment is low, but some prices remain stubbornly high. What would you do to improve the economy? And what's your argument against the Biden administration, which says your tax policies only benefit the wealthiest Americans?
Yeah, actually, my tax policy, they created the greatest, strongest economy in the history of our country, probably in the history of the world. We had the strongest economy that we've ever had by far.
We had record low poverty, record highs in household median income. Every demographic group had record low unemployment. Almost every, I believe, pretty much every demographic group had record low unemployment with record highs in household median income, record low poverty across the U.S., and we had low inflation, less than 3%. We had interest rates. Home mortgage rates were only about 3% or so. They're now 7 to 8%. Or around 7%. And so you're paying over double in Biden's economy for a mortgage. If you buy a house, you're paying double in terms of your mortgage payments every month. Inflation, depending on the state, is a tax, an invisible tax, especially upon the poor. When Democrats talk about how they care so much about the poor, they don't care about the inflation caused directly by Biden's policies. He went into office, signed executive orders against oil and gas companies. And Samuel Stafford, my goodness, thank you as well. To my super chat, thank you so much. Samuel, Paul, thank you so very much, everybody. My God, Samuel, thank you again. Greatly appreciated. To my super chat, you really not only help this channel, but we're gonna be growing. We're on our way to 231,000, hopefully 300,000 subs, Samuel and Paul. It'll be because of you and your support. Thank you, Samuel, again. So greatly appreciated. My God, thank you. And Paul, thank you so very much as always. Every night, thank you. To the super chat, thank you. But ladies and gentlemen, you have inflation. Everything, food, rent, oil and energy. It is hurting the pocketbook of the average American. And when you see articles saying, "Well, the economy is actually a lot better than most other Western countries," yeah, a lot of countries around the world are already in recession because they shut down economic activity, which is exactly what Democrat governors did 4 years ago, which was an economic sin. But let's continue. Trump's economy was a great economy. His foreign policy was even better, I think.
And all Biden did was pick up on it, but he ruined it because he screwed up energy so badly that inflation went crazy. And now inflation's through the roof. They can't lower interest rates because if they do, you're going to drive up inflation to levels that nobody's ever seen before. We have among the highest inflation we've ever had. We've never had inflation like this, and it's sticking. It's not going down at all. Where bacon and food products are costing double and triple what they were just a few years ago, where gasoline energy is way up and going up. If you notice over the last couple of weeks, gasoline and just fuel oil generally, but gasoline has gone way up. And the people see it in the tank. I mean, in California, it's over $7 a gallon, and everything else is following it. So we have to get energy down, and we have to get common sense, and we have to get taxes lower. He's going to give you the largest tax increase in the history of our country. And he talks about it, but he doesn't know what he's talking about anyway. Everybody knows that.
But that's for the wealthiest Americans. And
no, that's what they say.
It was a tax decrease across the board. Democrats and Bernie Sanders, I used to be the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post. And I can tell you, it's a racket. They talk about the billionaire class, and then they get billionaire donors funding all their nonsense within the Democratic Party. But most importantly, a tax, if you lower taxes, we saw it with Trump's administration, okay? If you want to debate, oh, well, it doesn't always happen this way. You lower taxes, you're going to increase economic activity and growth. Then the Democrats care about the debt or the deficit. It's like, look what you did 4 years ago. Are you kidding? They just wrote blank checks to the American public after they shut down economic activity. They don't care about the debt or deficit. They run up unbelievable deficits and debt all the time, Democrats. They just don't want tax cuts. And the tax cuts worked. It led to a growing economy, and everyone had their taxes cut. Not just the wealthiest Americans benefit in Biden's economy, in every economy, in Trump's economy, every economy. That's just a propaganda spin. What Trump did was benefit the country. See, then for example, Biden signs executive orders going after oil and gas companies and making it difficult for oil and gas companies to operate. Then inflation rises because guess what? Energy costs are higher because Biden signed executive orders to make it difficult for oil and gas companies to operate. Then he flooded the country full of strategic petroleum reserves, millions and millions of barrels. How that's great for the planet, I don't know. If you're a liberal Democrat, you vote for Biden because he cares about the planet. Well, how is flooding the country full of millions of barrels of strategic petroleum reserves, how is that good for the country? Again, it's like the most hypocritical, absurd political ideology on the left. Then interest rates go up as Biden is flooding the country full of strategic petroleum reserves. And the interest rates go up. Then inflation, they say, goes down. But inflation for food and energy and rent still is very high. So it's like you've made now credit card, mortgage payments, interest rates are through the roof. And they can't lower interest rates because if they do, inflation will then skyrocket back up. This did not happen in Trump's America. I'd much rather have Trump's America than Biden's America.
This is the thing that created the jobs. We had the best jobs programs ever. We had the best job numbers ever. And you know what they say, it's always for the wealthy. Always. It wasn't. The people that benefited the most from my tax cuts, I gave the biggest tax cuts in the history of our country, bigger than the Ronald Reagan tax cuts. The people that benefited the most were low-income people. They benefited the most. The middle income were the second most. And a lot of it was because of the jobs we created. We created the greatest juggernaut of jobs that this country's ever seen.
The jobs growth was amazing, especially in manufacturing. Okay? So, just really quickly, not only will the Supreme Court give Trump a huge victory, but he just got a huge victory in Georgia regarding disqualifying the prosecutor, the DA that was going after him. That's a huge deal. Then a huge victory with a federal judge in Florida indefinitely postponing Trump's classified documents trial. I should have done a whole segment on that, but I did the Rubio segment yesterday. Okay? He might pick Rubio. But then you have the New York case, the immunity, presidential immunity, the case in Georgia, the classified data case. The presidential immunity case is one of the special counsel cases. The other one is the classified data. Both are going to be completely derailed. One, because the judge postponed the classified data. He's a president with the power to declassify. Biden and Clinton were not. And they were obviously going after him in a manner they never went after Democrats, which is the same story that we've heard for years. And then you have the New York case, the hush money case, which is imploding on its absurdity. The absurdity of the case has imploded any credibility. Everyone's laughing at this saying, where is the crime? But anyway, that's huge. Let's listen really quickly, not really quickly, but let's listen to John Roberts. He is going to give Trump a monumental presidential immunity victory. And here's why. I won't interrupt. This is obviously for educational purposes. As whenever I do show, clips of, the justices or a Fox News purely for educational purposes. But he basically says to the special counsel, why don't I just bring this back to the courts? Why doesn't he just bring this back to the lower courts to find out what is and what isn't an official act? So the DC case, the January case, has completely become a constitutional victory for Trump. They're going to give Trump a huge victory. The classified case has gone basically postponed indefinitely. The Georgia case has completely dismantled because you have a DA and others possibly using cash from tax dollars, potentially. That's a big issue. And then the only case they have where they can convict Trump, which is seemingly less likely every day because of the absurd testimonies, but is the hush money. They might actually convict him because it's New York, and they'll get that 2 or 3 months. He's a convicted felon. He's a felon, Trump, and it'll be overturned on appeal. 1,000%. But anyway, let's continue.
So the Court of Appeals below, whose decision we're reviewing, said, quote, a former president can be prosecuted for his official acts because the fact of the prosecution means that the former president has allegedly acted in defiance of the laws. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, I think it sounds tautologically true, but I want to underscore that the obligation of a president is to take care that the laws are faithfully executed.
Well, I think it sounds tautologically true as well, and that, I think, is the clearest statement of the court's holding, which is why it concerns me. As I read it, it says simply, a former president can be prosecuted because he's being prosecuted.
Well, I would not suggest that that's either the proper approach in this case or certainly not the government's approach. A prosecution does, of course, invoke federal criminal law. The allegations have to be presented to a grand jury, which votes upon the indictment.
Well, that's what I mean, shortly after that statement in the court, that court's opinion, that's what they said, but there's no reason to worry because the prosecutor will act in good faith, and there's no reason to worry because a grand jury will have returned the indictment. Mm-hmm. Now, you know how easy it is in many cases for a prosecutor to get a grand jury to bring an indictment, and reliance on the good faith of the prosecutor may not be enough in the some cases. I'm not suggesting here.
And really quickly, Roberts is the Chief Justice, and he is skeptical. So when he's skeptical, and he's the furthest left of all the conservatives, let's say, when he's skeptical, imagine the 5 other conservatives. Okay? It's going to be a 6-3, possibly 7-2, but 6-3 in favor of Trump. Trump is winning all of these cases, ladies and gentlemen. The hush money either on appeal if he gets convicted. And he's up in the polls. He's going to win the presidency. Democrats are so inept. They threw everything at him and they can't make anything stick.
So if it's tautological, and those are the only protections that the Court of Appeals below gave, and that is no longer your position, you're not defending that position, why shouldn't we either send it back to the Court of Appeals or issue an opinion making clear that that's not the law?
Well, I am defending the Court of Appeals judgment, and I do think that there are layered safeguards that the court can take into account that will ameliorate concerns about unduly chilling presidential conduct. That concerns us. We are not endorsing a regime that we think would expose former presidents to criminal prosecution in bad faith, for political animus.
This is the definition of political animus and bad faith. Democrats in unison throughout the country have tried to level these cases against Trump. With Colorado, like I said it would, it was unanimously overturned. Even the liberal justices sided with Trump. When you get a unanimous Supreme Court reversal, and then you're going to get a Supreme Court victory again for Trump, yes, it's obvious political bias.
Without adequate evidence, a politically driven prosecution would violate the Constitution under Waite versus United States. It's not something within the arsenal of prosecutors to do. Prosecutors take an oath, the Attorney General takes an oath. So I don't want to overstate Your Honor's concern with potentially relying solely on good faith. But that's an ingredient, and then the courts stand ready to adjudicate motions based on selective prosecution, political animus. This court relied on those very protections in the Vance case just 2 years ago.
But what concerns me is, as you know, the Court of Appeals did not get into a focused consideration of what acts we're talking about or what documents we're talking about because of its adoption of what you termed, and I agree quite correctly, as a tautological statement, because the fact of prosecution was enough to take away any official immunity. The fact of prosecution, they had no need to look at what courts normally look at when you're talking about a privilege or immunity question.
Well, I think I would take issue, Mr. Chief Justice, with the idea of taking away immunity. There is no immunity that is in the Constitution unless this court creates it today. There certainly is no textual immunity. We do not submit that that's the end of the story. United States versus Nixon wasn't a textually based case. Neither was Nixon versus Fitzgerald. We endorse both.
There's the Federal Bureau of Investigation isn't written within the Constitution. Doesn't say that you can have a Department of Energy. Suddenly, the Democrats become Antonin Scalia, and they become originalists and textualists, and they say, well, it's not in the text. It's like, yeah, it's obviously interpreted with Supreme Court precedent. The president is also commander-in-chief. You think the average citizen is commander-in-chief of the United States military? No.
Of those holdings. But what is important is that no public official has ever had the kind of absolute criminal immunity that my friend speaks of, even with respect to the speech or debate clause. It's very narrow. It's focused on legislative acts. It's not focused on everything that a congressman does. And it responds to a very specific historical circumstance that basically involved the two other branches potentially harassing legislators and preventing them from doing their jobs. That's why it ended up in the Constitution. Nothing like that ended up in the Constitution for the presidents, and that's because one of the chief concerns of the framers was the risk of presidential misconduct. They labored over this. They adopted an impeachment structure that separated removal from office as a political remedy from criminal prosecution. This departed from the British model. The British model was you get impeached and criminally prosecuted and convicted in the same proceeding. The framers did not want that. They wanted a.
So whenever you get a history lesson from the lawyers defending the Democratic Party's indictment of Trump, or let's say banning him with the Colorado Supreme Court, they don't want to hear that. Justices don't want to hear that. They already know U.S. history. They have a better grasp of what the framers wanted than Democrats intent on banning Trump, for example, in Colorado, or imprisoning him over a speech. He's allowed to perform a speech with presidential immunity. He did not tell anyone to do anything. Okay? He's allowed to also speak to administration officials without being imprisoned for it. He did not commit a crime when he asked officials to look into possible wrongdoing. Okay? He didn't accept results. That's fine. Democrats haven't accepted results since 2016. They still think the Kremlin gave it to Trump and over Clinton, which they made up, completely made up. The Mueller probe found absolutely nothing. But then again, they created a McCarthy-era Red Scare because they lost. But the point is, they're trying to get Trump on fraud, a very broad, ambiguous claim, where the intent is that he knew he was wrong, which is laughable. Most Republicans agree with Trump, but let's continue here. This is really interesting. Trump's top intel official, John Ratcliffe, you will hear in a couple of seconds.
I was shocked at how highly classified these documents are. The media wants you to believe, oh, this was just some old Cold War stuff that old senile Biden maybe had in his garage from decades ago. No, it was recent. It was relevant. And I mean, they had so many code words across it. I've had a clearance for 30 years. I had to ask what they meant.
And that was Florida Congressman and House Intelligence Committee member Michael Waltz breaking news on this program last weekend with details on just how sensitive those classified documents are that were kept in President Biden's garage next to his Corvette, as well as at the Penn Biden Center.
He did not have the authority to declassify anything. He wasn't a president. Trump was president. That's the most important difference. One of the most important differences, okay, between what Trump is alleged to have done and what Biden and Clinton did. Clinton had servers with top secret intel. With somehow they managed to transfer top secret intel onto servers. That's impossible to do from a cybersecurity perspective. Highly illegal. But of course, you know, Democrats apparently don't get indicted by top agencies. Then you had Biden in like 5 or 6 different locations with classified data. That, by the way, the Secret Service at Mar-a-Lago protected the area with Trump's documents, which he had every right to keep. Every other president brought home classified data. Or they say they declassified the information.
The top secret documents dated back to Biden's tenure as both a vice president and a senator, which he had no authority to personally keep. Despite the national security risks, special counsel Robert Hur declined to charge Biden, in part because he said he's, quote, an elderly man with a poor memory. Meanwhile, special counsel Jack Smith is still pursuing his classified documents case against former President Trump. In a filing on Thursday, Trump classified documents the poor memory.
So the special counsel, we have considered that at trial, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview of him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. This is actually from the special counsel. Are you kidding me? They want to imprison Trump for literally hundreds of years? And a jury in Florida or a jury in Texas or a jury in any red state wouldn't find him to be a sympathetic, well-meaning man with a poor memory. Could you imagine? Could you imagine how they're able to circumvent legal repercussions, indictments, imprisonment? Because like the Honorable James Comey and like the Honorable Special Counsel Hur, just recently, say, well, a jury or a court or a prosecutor, then they go into the minds of other people, would never really want to indict Clinton or Biden. But with Trump, oh my God, Trump.
Meanwhile, special counsel Jack Smith is still pursuing his classified documents case against former President Trump. In a filing on Thursday, Trump's attorneys called for the 40-count indictment to be tossed, citing Hur's decision not to charge Biden. And former Vice President Mike Pence admitted that he kept classified documents at his Indiana home after he left the White House. The DOJ declined to charge Pence, closing the case last year. Then this bombshell, the FBI admitting to misrepresenting the documents that they claimed to have taken from Trump estate Mar-a-Lago. Joining me now with more in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive on all of this is the former Director of National Intelligence and former prosecutor himself, John Ratcliffe. John.
They're not even sure if the documents haven't been altered in any way. That's how strong the claims against Trump are. And the whole Mar-a-Lago raid, pure public relations. Nothing actually hurts Trump politically. That's how bad the reputation of the Democratic Party is. They can indict and go after him and send government agents after him at his home and he'll risk prison time, and he's still up in the polls. The average American would much rather have Trump than a Democrat they know is simply going after Trump for political purposes. Plus, we had a great foreign policy and a great economic policy. When Democrats say, oh, well, it would be worse under Trump, how would it be worse? The economy was better, foreign policy was better. What is a completely irrational statement? You get this from like, oh, well, look what's happening throughout the world. These regions of the world are descending into madness. Oh, it would have been worse under Trump. We already had Trump for 4 years. It wasn't worse. I don't think Democrats remember Trump was president and that it was much better during his tenure.
It's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here.
Morning, Maria.
I'm going to get to the classified documents issue in a moment and this misrepresentation by the FBI. But first, give us your legal perspective of the Manhattan DA's trial right now for Donald Trump.
Well, it's been a train wreck for the prosecution. Look, every witness that they've called so far has been a witness intending to harm Donald Trump. And in fact, in every instance, they have at least in part helped Donald Trump with this case. And every witness that the state has called so far has also said that the state's most important witness, Michael Cohen, can't be believed, that he is essentially a pathological liar. So if this were a fair judge and a fair jury, the case already would have been dismissed or the case would be decided in the jurors' minds. But we don't have that because we have a judge in this case who is allowing, through his rulings, the prosecutors to pursue an impossibility. The case that they are prosecuting, Maria, is to try and show the jury that Donald Trump somehow magically, mystically, impossibly business records entries in 2017 somehow influenced the presidential election of 2016. Their whole case is premised on the idea that all of the conduct that they discuss, which is lawful, is somehow unlawful. And
that's a great point. Also, that's a great point that I haven't brought up. The business records were entered in 2017, 2016. The payments were made not by Trump, by Michael Cohen, who literally took out, I think, a line of credit to make the payments to Stormy. And so it's like, where's the crime? The Federal Election Commission did not, the FEC did not find Trump. They fined Clinton and the DNC. The DOJ didn't go after Trump. Where's the federal crime? Now you need a federal crime to elevate the misdemeanors. And so you need a federal crime to elevate the misdemeanors into a felony. And they don't have that. So this is just, everyone knows they're just going after Trump because they despise him. That's it. That's the antithesis of democracy. The antithesis.
The judge is allowing him to do that. And of course, we know that that is, in the end, is reversible error. But in this case, we have a judge who voted for Joe Biden, donated to Joe Biden, whose daughter works for Joe Biden's vice president, Kamala Harris, and for Adam Schiff and for the Democratic Party. And that has clearly been reflected in his rulings against President Trump throughout this trial. And that's the only danger that President Trump has in this matter, because from a legal standpoint, again, they're attempting to approve something that is absolutely legally impossible, and his conduct is absolutely lawful in every respect, and it is reversible error on any number of grounds when this case ultimately goes up, if it had to, with a verdict against the former president.
So the appeal he will get if a Hollywood producer, Notorious, got a verdict overturned the other day, okay, who shall remain nameless for algorithmic purposes, but as will his defense. But you look, ladies and gentlemen, and it's like, the Court of Appeals in New York will overturn any conviction here, because this is precedent. This is precedent that cannot stand. Okay, or I should say, this is a moment in time that cannot serve as precedent. Okay, you can't accuse somebody of a criminal act when a record-keeping violation is a misdemeanor, and you've desperately tried to make it into a felony with a federal crime that doesn't exist.
Now, you believe this is all coordinated because you point out that there were some of these DAs that were meeting with White House counsel.
Realtor.com is the only site that lets you find homes with a
systematically coordinated. Look, this lawfare campaign, Maria, is the most unlawful and unconstitutional political persecution and instance of election interference that hopefully any of us will see in our lifetime. I mean, as you know, what you have is the leading Republican presidential candidate and nominee in waiting. And the year before that election, there's not one, not two, not three, but 4 criminal indictments, all brought by Democratic prosecutors in either blue states or blue counties, or by his opponent's own Department of Justice. So it's absolutely out of bounds. It's absolutely coordinated. But it's also, Maria, it's also failing. I mean, let's take inventory of where they are. In Georgia, the Fani Willis prosecution has all but collapsed under the weight of her own corruption. In the Jack Smith matter, you have 2 cases. In the January 6th case, he's already been shot down by the Supreme Court once and is likely to be shot down shortly on the immunity issue. And in the classified documents case that you referenced before, it's hanging by a thread, Maria, because as you pointed out, he's now had to admit under oath that in filings with the court that they tampered with evidence and misrepresented or lied to the court about that, which then leaves us with this New York case, which, really at the end of the day, the only question for the jury in this case should be who's more corrupt, the prosecutors or the judge.
So in every case, okay, in every single case, nothing is the way Democrats wanted it to go. Okay, each of these cases have resulted in a political catastrophe for Democrats. The Colorado ban was overturned unanimously, number one. The 2 special counsel cases are going nowhere, and Trump will dissolve the special counsel after he wins. And let's just say in some bizarre alternate universe, Trump doesn't win, which would be very, very fishy and bizarre. But we'll leave it at that. They're not going to go after him with such passion. The reason they're doing that is simply because of 2024. Everyone knows this. Nobody looks at this and says, "Oh, they're apolitical." Oh, New York prosecutors are not political and apolitical and nonpartisan nonpartisan. Nobody's saying that. That's something you've never heard ever before. Everybody knows that you have Democratic Party prosecutors, and they're doing this to gain momentum, political momentum. This is what gives them political momentum, okay? They want political momentum, okay? And Bernaldo, thank you. Thank you so very much. Greatly appreciated, Bernaldo. Thank you. I appreciate the comment. They want political momentum. Okay, and that's what they want. They derive that by going after Trump. Okay, they derive that by going after Trump. And like I said, you heard from John Roberts. They're going to give the indictment back to lower courts. And Samuel and Paul and everyone here, every day, ladies and gentlemen, is a countdown to November. Stay safe. Eat your Wheaties. Pray. Have a beautiful time. Focus on happiness, love, joy. Read a bunch of books, comic books, whatever. Paint, draw, write poetry, do anything you love. Be happy every single day from here until November 5th and beyond November 5th, because we're going to party. We're going to have a party, a celebration on this channel. I want you there. I want you there, Paul and Samuel and everyone here. I want everyone here in November, because it's going to be very beautiful, hopefully a beautiful moment in American history. Paul, thank you again. Greatly, 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 greatly appreciated. Samuel, thank you. To my super chat, thank you. Samuel, thank you as always. And Paul, thank you as always. Every day is a countdown, people. It's all a countdown. And you just, basically, Trump keeps winning, and Democrats keep wondering why Trump keeps winning, completely oblivious to the fact that they're so utterly corrupt. Everyone knows it. Hit subscribe to this channel. November 5th, he'll win, God willing, and we'll have a better economy and a better foreign policy, but we'll see yet another meltdown from one